Hello team and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we are going to learn a lot of things with hands-on projects. So make sure to subscribe to channel if you haven't already. You will find tons of amazing hands-on videos on DevOps and Cloud DevOps. Also team, for those who are preparing for DevOps interviews, you can check out our batch 9 which has recently started, and from our previous batches top placement was of 40 LPA. Talking about today's agenda, what exactly we are going to cover. So let me explain you. This will be in two parts. First, we are going to learn Nginx, see how exactly it works, what is the workflow of Nginx and everything, and how we can set it up. Second part will be of projects part, and in this video I'll be doing three projects, not one, not two, total three projects. First project will be, and all three projects will be focusing on real world use cases of Nginx. For example, first use case that we are going to implement using a project will be how Nginx can be used to serve a static site. Second project, using the second real world use case that we are going to implement using Nginx will be how we can use Nginx as reverse proxy. Third real world project that we are going to implement using Nginx will be how we can use Nginx as a load balancer. Okay, these three projects will be included, and team, make sure to watch this video till end because there are so many configurations that we have to do, and in order for you to understand very clearly what are the detailed steps, make sure to watch the video till end. So guys, first of all, let us understand what exactly is a web server. So web server is a software, and sometimes it could be a hardware also, which is going to respond based on web request. For example, we put our let's say I want to visit a website, so I'm going to put that URL in my browser, right? This browser is going to forward that request to web server. Okay, and then web server is going to find the page that we have requested for. It could be like HTML, CSS based pages. It's going to find that, it's going to bring it, and it's going to serve it back to us via browser. That is web server. Now here you can notice I have said that it's a software, but sometimes it could be a hardware also. Software means there are many web server. For example, we have Apache, we have Nginx, right? Hardware could be also there. So there could be some kind of physical server that is stored or kept at some point or at some kind of data centers. Okay. At this point, mostly it's Nginx or like Apache or basically software kind of web servers, but sometimes it could be a hardware also, basically like physical server that is stored or kept at some data centers. Okay, that is web server. Now let us understand the scenario that was happening in previous times long ago. So guys, now let us understand the scenario that was happening long ago before we have the better system of web servers. So long ago, let's say we were using Apache. Okay. So there were two kind of specific web server. First was process based, while second was thread based. So let us understand one by one, and let us understand the problem statement also, what exactly was the issue with that. First, let us understand about the process based model. So these were the specific kind of web servers which used to create or spawn a process. Spawn a process whenever a new request came. For example, someone in browser put a specific URL to visit. As soon as this was done, a new process would be created, right? And this process, whenever a process gets created, it has its own memory. That means RAM. So like let's say first person put the URL in browser, it created a new process to handle this request, and now it's going to wait, and now it's going to find the pages that were requested by the user via URL, and now it's going to serve that. Okay. Similarly, second time someone hit URL to view some other page, again a new process got created, and again it has its own memory. Okay, and then it's going to serve the whatever pages were requested. Now you can understand if lot of people are sending a request to lot of people are sending a request to view web pages or visit a websites, and continuously multiple processes are getting created. You can understand immediately within few minutes or some time it will be overloaded, because if we have, let's say, so many people are requesting, so obviously if each request is having its own process, having its own memory, then there will be a time there no memory left. right? And it will be like whole server will be overloaded and it will crash. So basically there was one problem statement defined which is known as 𝗕10𝗃. It basically means let us say that you are running a website and that is like all the requests are getting handled by a web server. So if let us assume that there are 10,000 people who are sending requests, you can understand if 10,000 people are sending requests and each time a new process gets created which is having, and see, for those who are not able to understand, in simple words, process you can understand, it's a kind of program. Okay, it's a kind of program. So if you can understand, if there are 10,000 requests coming and there will be 10,000 process gets created, right? So this will be complete crash of the website because it could not handle that much, right? So this was process based system. Okay, let us talk about the second one. We have thread based. What was thread based? So basically previously we had process handling all the requests. Now what they decided that they could use a process, and inside process they could have multiple threads. Okay, T1 thread, T2 thread, and T3 thread. So now what was happening, that inside a process we have multiple threads and they were handling the request, whatever request is coming for visiting a website or accessing some kind of web pages. So all those requests were getting handled by these threads. Okay, benefit as compared to previous version was that they were having they require very small amount of memory, right? Very small amount of memory, so that it was able to handle things better than previous scenario. Still it was happening like that only, like process, inside process we have some threads, they also are having some kind of memory, but they require very less amount of memory. Thread is basically, you can say, a task inside process, a small task. Okay, so here also still memory is getting occupied like less memory, but still getting occupied too much. So if you again here also, if 𝗕10𝗃 problem comes, that means around 10,000 people raise send a request to access some kind of web page or website, it's going to crash eventually. If you can understand, if there are multiple threads, obviously if 10,000 request is coming, multiple threads need to be created, right? So here also eventually crash will happen. So these two problems like getting issue. Why it's getting issue? Because there will be overload. All this process and threads cannot handle complete request because they require a lot of memory. Each one requires memory to handle the request, and eventually if there is so much of people trying to access website, it's going to crash, right? Then everyone decided, okay, this is the problem statement, what could be the solution? Then they created Nginx, which is actually pronounced as Nginx. Okay, so let us understand about this structure using Nginx architecture, how exactly it was solving the specific 𝗕10𝗃 problem and how it's better than the previous version of web servers. So team, let us understand it with a real world example. Let us say that you are in a restaurant where suddenly first couple came, couple one. So as soon as this couple comes, there will be one waiter assigned. Let's call it as waiter one. Now waiter one is asking couple one, have you decided what you want to order? Couple says, no, we have not yet decided. So if you are working with the previous web servers, the old web servers, then in that case this waiter will be staying idle and staying here only on couple one. Suddenly another couple came, which is, let's say, couple two. So immediately another waiter will be created, and that will be waiter 2. Now waiter 2 says to couple 2 that, have you decided what you want to order? They say, no, we are still deciding. So instead of going any other couple, waiter 2 will be still here. Okay, similarly another couple came, again new waiter will come. So here consider these waiters as processes. Okay, and these couples as a request. So basically the problem statement is here that we can see that these are still waiting, and even though they are idle, they are not going to another request, not going to handle another request. Problem here, you can see very clearly that since they are going, this process are going to have their, see, at this point consider them, this is like whatever request is coming, and this is basically the process handling that request. So for each request that we have, a new process is getting spawned, and each process is having its own RAM, right, its own memory. So it's going to occupy a lot of memory. Okay, and eventually because of a huge number of processes getting spawned, so it's going to crash eventually once we have huge number of load, right? For example, there is as I discussed, there is another this problems that we have C10K. That means around 10,000 people if they are sending requests to access a website or web pages, and then we have to create multiple process. Automatically multiple process is going to get created, and eventually there will be crash. Okay, so to solve this problem, we have new version of Nginx. Now let us understand how exactly it's going to work. So let us say that again in a restaurant, couple 1 came, right? So for that, waiter 1 will be assigned. Now this waiter 1, he asks that to this couple that have you decided what you want to order? Couple says that we have not yet decided. So waiter says okay, you can decide and immediately give me a call once you have finalized your decision. After that, immediately another couple came. Just avoid the spelling mistakes, guys. So this waiter will be not sitting idle. Instead, it will come here to ask this couple that have you decided what you want to order. Again this couple says no, we are still deciding. Meanwhile another couple came, right? Same process will go here and it will be handling this request. So here what you can see, if we say that these are my requests that is coming to access some website, and these are the process, so you can see same process can it can handle the request. And as I say the process, the waiter has said that you can call me once you have decided, right? Secondly, it's not sitting idle. It's not simply waiting at for couple 1. Instead, it's going to couple 2, whoever has coming to the restaurant, right? So in this way, two things you can see. First, call me is basically event driven. Event driven means you can say that once couple says okay, we have decided, that means that is something is happening there. Then this will go back and this will handle the request, and it's not also not sitting idle. That means it is, this process is not sitting here, it's going to another request, whatever request is coming. So these two things, why I am specifically defining them, because Nginx is a kind of event driven and asynchronous web server. What do I mean by that? We have two keywords, event driven and asynchronous. Now what do I mean by that? Event driven means Nginx web server is going to handle request only if something happens. That means if some request comes, then only the process is going to handle it. Okay. Plus, we don't want that Nginx should be sitting idle. Instead, it basically means that don't sit idle, do something. It basically means that instead of sitting idle at just one request, waiting for the request to come, the data to come, like we want to access this page or that page, instead of that, you should see what other requests are coming and go handle them. Okay, that's why we call the Nginx web server as event driven and asynchronous. Okay, basically, as soon, see, at this point, let's say there are no requests, so process will be silent, nothing is happening at this point. As soon as any request come, immediately process will come here, ask okay, what you want to access. Okay, if that request is, if that in that request it is not defined, or it's if that information is still waiting to be coming, then immediately that process will go to some other request to check. Okay, so same process won't sit idle, it will just go to other request also, whichever is coming. Okay, that's what event driven means. If something happens, then only Nginx is going to handle it, and side by side it's not sitting idle, it's going to go to other request also. Okay, that is Nginx web server, event driven and asynchronous. Now few more things we should understand very clearly. Let me explain you those as well. So as I said Nginx is going to use process. Remember that it's not using any threads, it's using only the process. Okay, and let us say that I have created virtual machine, inside that I installed Nginx, and let us say I have created the virtual machine that is having 4 core. Okay, if there are 4 core, then there will be 4 process getting set up. Okay, that is the scenario, that is the main configuration that you need to remember. 4 core, then there will be 4 process. Okay, now let me explain you step by step in detail how exactly whole handling of request will be done. So team, now let us understand the workflow of Nginx, how exactly it works with the technical terms. Okay. So there are multiple steps and I'm going to explain each step. So first step, that is going to be, let's say I have installed Nginx on my Ubuntu machine. So first step would be to start Nginx, right? If I want to use Nginx, then I'm going to start Nginx. That can be done using the command sudo systemctl start Nginx. Very simple command. First step is done. Second step is, let's say that some client is sending some request to access some web pages, right? So here client is what? Client is basically a browser, because if I want to access some website, I can send the request through browser. Sometimes it is possible that our browser is basically some other web pages and I want to access it, or let's say our browser is some kind of backend servers. So if I want to send a request to that, I can use API calls. But I would recommend everyone to understand via browser. It will be much easier for you. So client is basically sending a request to access some web page by typing the URL of that inside the browser. So browser is going to be our client. So in second step, basically what needs to happen is TCP connection. TCP connection between client and server. Here server is what? Our Nginx. And this TCP connection basically happens using three-way handshake. What exactly does it mean by that? So let us say first, see, before client send the request to access a web page, first client needs to establish connection with server, then only like data transfer or anything can happen, right? So three-way handshake means first request goes, it is like it is using a flag SYN. SYN means synchronize. So once first like three-way handshake, it is basically combined of three sections. First is synchronize SYN, it goes to server, server then acknowledge this and it's going to send back to client key. Okay, we have acknowledged the connection. So that will be acknowledge plus synchronize, because sending back again. And finally client also acknowledge that okay, my connection request has been acknowledged by server. First connection request sent, it was like see, connection request won't be the exact word, but I'm telling so that you can understand very clearly. So first it sends using synchronize SYN, server acknowledge that request and then sends back using this ACK plus synchronize. Okay, and finally client also acknowledges okay, request, my request has been acknowledged by server, so server has sent the request back. Okay, so this is three-way handshake happened for the TCP connection. Again SYN, ACK plus SYN, then ACK. Okay, now here when connection comes, what is going to happen? The OS, the operating system, is going to assign, so operating system is going to assign that connection to socket. What is socket? Is basically connection. Okay, that is our second step. Now comes the most important part. So once this socket is socket has this connection like assigned, next step would be to add these sockets or basically register this socket to ePOL. What exactly is ePOL? So ePOL is basically a notification mechanism inside Linux. It's a kind of system call that is going to help process or programs monitor multiple sockets. Socket is what? Socket is containing the connection details, connection request, whatever request is coming, it is stored inside socket. Okay, and the thing is why we are storing it inside ePOL mechanism is because see here, if some client want to access some web page, so two steps things happening. First they are establishing the connection, second only they are saying okay, I want to run a get request for a web page like index.html. So it's a two-step, right? So what is going to happen? We are going to add those sockets to ePOL, and inside ePOL there will be the next step is fourth step. So we have added these sockets to ePOL. We have registered these sockets to ePOL. Basically inside ePOL what happens? It's going to check the status. What status? It's going, let's say we have a socket, inside socket we have connection 101. So here connection 101, it could be in readable state, right? Readable mode you can say. And let's say we have another connection which is 102 which is also in readable mode. Let's say we have connection 103 in writable mode. Now, so these status that you see, status of the sockets, of the connection that is inside sockets, what is going to happen for them? Why we are like creating an array of this information, so that in next step read request and processing of that request can be done. Basically it means that as soon as like connection 101 is readable, so 𝗕𝗋𝗃 is going to inform Nginx that okay, we have a connection request that is readable. If it is readable, then immediately Nginx is going to read the request, because as I said, inside request we could have information like what exactly this request asking for. So inside the request, Nginx can read that maybe they are asking for a get request for some kind of index.html, right? That will be inside our read request, and that can be, see, this is possible only, this information can be like received by Nginx only if connection is in readable mode. Then only Nginx can read. So that information they got. Secondly, once they have read this information, then they are going to process the request. That means they understand, okay, they are asking for index.html page, so we need to serve it. So they will like basically process the request and become ready for serving that index.html. And in next step, if Nginx get information that okay, now connection 101 it became in writable mode, then immediately response will be sent back by Nginx. By response means serving of index.html page which was required. See, for Nginx to read and write, the connection needs to be in readable and writable mode. So if it is in readable mode, Nginx can read immediately what is the request, what is this connection asking, right? If it is in writable mode, then immediately Nginx can send the response back, and response means index.html, whatever was asked. Okay. And final thing, we have step 7, which is basically life cycle of the connection. It is possible that the request that we received over via browser, they just wanted to visit one page, and after that they have closed that three-way handshake connection. If they have closed it, we don't have to do anything. If they are keeping it alive, if they are keeping the connection alive, then again that connection is going back to 𝗕𝗋𝗃, so that next any kind of request comes, then and immediately the connection will become readable or writable mode, then those requests can be handled by Nginx. Okay, so this is how whole process goes, and let me try a small diagram to make you understand everything. First thing that is going to be, this is our, let's say, browser from where client sends request. The request goes to here. First of all, what is happening? A TCP connection is happening, right, to server. Then what is going to happen? This connection that we have, that we received over the browser, that is going to be registered with 𝗕𝗋𝗃. 𝗕𝗋𝗃 is continuously going to monitor it and get the status if the connection is in readable mode or writable mode. And again, as I said in the beginning, that OS is going to assign that connection to a socket. Okay, so 𝗕𝗋𝗃 is going to continuously monitor this if the connection is readable mode or writable mode. If connection becomes readable mode, then that whatever request is coming through this connection will be read by our the one who is going to handle the request, that is Nginx. Okay, and the request will be processed. Okay, once it is processed and Nginx is ready to respond back with whatever request came. That means if connection request from browser came is a get request to access some home page index.html. So here Nginx will be ready to serve it back, but before that Nginx need to make sure that connection is in writable mode, then only they can write back. So once it becomes in writable mode, Nginx is going to respond back with the whatever request was asked for. Next thing, if this connection, if it is closed, then fine, nothing we have to do. But if it is still alive, then again the connection will be added to 𝗵𝗋. Now, as I said, 𝗵𝗋 task is basically to notify Nginx if this connection it is in readable mode or writable mode. Simple as that. This is how it's going to work. Okay, now let us understand about the real world use cases of Nginx Web Server. First, Nginx Web Server use case is that it can be used very easily to serve static web pages. Static web pages or static website. Very easy. How we can do that? So when we set up our Nginx, there will be a directory var/www. Inside that, you need to put that like files of that static website. Once it is done, then Nginx will be able to serve it as a like proper website. So basically, in simple words, the architecture will be like that. Okay, this is our client, which is browser. It sends request goes to Nginx. Then Nginx, if request is verified, okay, this is the request they are asking for, Nginx is going to reach out to the static web pages that we have kept inside var www directory, and it's going to send the response back to client so that client can see the pages. This is the first use case, which is very basic one. That means Nginx can be used to serve the static web pages. Okay. Second use case, which is kind of more important, Nginx can be used as a reverse proxy. Now, what exactly do I mean by that? Do I mean by reverse proxy? Let us understand with this example. See, as of now, request goes to Nginx, Nginx forwards to the web pages, and it sends back to client. Simple as that, right? But in some cases, what can be done? This is our, let's say, Nginx. And we have an application that has a front end, and this application also had back end. And this is our client. So client want to access front application, whole application, that means front end back end connected. So it's going to send request to Nginx. Nginx here, it's a mediator. Okay. Now what is going to happen? First client says raise the request to Nginx for a specific, like let's say home page. That home page, UI of home page stored inside front end. Now on UI, there are few functionalities also that needs to be coming from backend. Now here front end is not able to access directly backend. So what is going to happen inside Nginx? We have written some configuration that as soon as front end like requires the backend and like data and so, it's going to send request to Nginx. It goes back here, like from Nginx to backend, then back to Nginx and back here. That means front end is even not accessing backend directly. The request is going to Nginx first. Here, that's why we say Nginx is acting as reverse proxy. Because the first benefit you can understand that backend is only accessible via Nginx. That means no direct access. That means there is better level of security we have. For security reasons, we are setting up things so that backend can be accessed only via Nginx reverse proxy. Reverse proxy is nothing. It's kind of like middleman. No direct access is given to backend. So if even frontend want to access, they have to send request to Nginx. Then Nginx is going to send request to backend, then response comes, and then it goes to frontend, like that. Okay, this is the scenario of reverse proxy. Talking about third use case, where Nginx can be used for load balancing. Now, let us say that client is here, okay, sends request to Nginx for accessing the some kind of application. Let's say we have some front end and we actually have 3 backend. 1, 2, 3. So request initially goes to front end. Now front end need to access backend for some data. So first of all, we are aware that direct access is not allowed. So that means request will be going to Nginx first. Now Nginx is going to forward the request to specific backend which is not already overloaded. So which one is like being less used or like has less traffic, to them Nginx is going to forward the request. Let's say ki on 2 and 3 there are a lot of requests already existing. So Nginx is going to forward the request to backend server 1. And in this way it will be able to balance the load. If like 1 or 3 are overloaded, Nginx is going to send the request to backend server 2. Okay. So it can handle the loads also that is increasing. Now all these 3 examples that I just showed you, I want to show you with practical also so that you can understand very clearly. Okay. So let us set up all these things from scratch inside our Ubuntu machine. So guys, now let us create one virtual machine. Before that, let me show you the ports that I would ask you to open. Make sure port 80 is open, make sure port 22 is open, make sure port 443 is open, make sure port this is open, because this is the range that I generally open because most of my projects will be deployed within this range. Okay, now let us create the instance and let us call this instance as server. This is Ubuntu and AMI will be 24.04 LTS version. Instance type, let us go with T2 medium, which is more than enough. And here this security group, and here we can select the security group, and storage I'm giving around 25. So we will install this and let us connect to this machine. This is the latest one, so I'll copy this, go to MobaXterm, let me close the previous session. Okay, yeah, I can modify it because key and everything is already same, only IP address will be changed. Now let us double click here. So we are now connected. So now we can run the command sudo apt update. Okay, so let's wait for this to complete, and after that we are going to install Nginx. Okay, so this is done, and now let us install Nginx. For that, if I run here, we can see it's not present, but we will be able to install it using this command. So let's install it immediately. Okay, now few things we need to understand very clearly. There are certain files that will be existing. So there is this directory etc/nginx. Inside this there will be some files and some folders, out of which there are certain things that you need to understand very clearly. Okay, before that anything, you need to understand that since we are going to use Nginx to serve web pages, so where exactly those web pages will be stored. So they will be stored on the directory named as var/www. Inside here, inside a specific folder, we can put our whatever web page we want to serve. Also remember, see this path you need to remember, www. Also you need to remember the user that is going to serve the pages. So we are not going to use Ubuntu root or anything else. We are going to be using this user. This is a username. That means whatever file we add here, we need to make sure that its permission is changed to this user. Then only it will be served via Nginx. Okay, this thing. Now let me show you the files and folders that are present. So we will go here /etc/nginx. So we have these many files and folders, out of which few of them that you must know. First of all, we have sites available, and then we have sites enabled. If I go inside the sites available, as of now you will see there is only default file. If I show you the content of it, this is the basic content. Now this is the file that contains the configuration information, what exactly is going to happen, like where is the file stored, how it will be accessed and everything. So and see, and if I want to access, if I want my website to be accessible via Nginx or served via Nginx, we need to create a configuration file here. Okay, and I will explain you in detail how, what kind of configuration file is that, and what are the things written inside the file. Okay, so few things are very clear. For first, uh, the configuration file of Nginx is stored in this location. Secondly, if whatever website or web pages I want to serve, I need to keep them on this location var/www. Okay, and here inside a folder we can write. Plus, a user that is going to be used for serving the pages will be this user. Okay, this user, and since this is the user who is going to serve the pages and these pages are stored inside a folder on this location, so we need to make sure that the owner of this folder and its content should be this user only, then only it will work. Okay, now let me explain you the configuration file that we need to create. So one more thing, team, let us say that once we have added the files that we want to serve on this location. So if I want Nginx to serve them, few more things we have to do. We have to create a configuration file. This will be extension of the file, and we are going to store it or keep it inside this location, etc/nginx/sites available. And inside this file, inside this folder, we have to create, let's say my folder name is, let's say, 𝗕𝗲𝗃𝗦𝗃𝗀. So here I will, inside sites available, I will create a configuration file like this, 𝗕𝗲𝗃𝗃𝗦𝗃. And inside this we have to define all the information, like where exactly our web pages are stored for serving, all those information. So now what I want to show you, I want to show you how you can serve static web pages. That is our project number 1. Before that, let me explain you this kind of configuration file. What exactly are the things written inside these file? Also, team, once you have created this configuration, you need to enable it so that it will be updated inside the folder this, and then inside this Nginx folder we have another folder which is known as sites enabled. So once you enable that, then only your website will be accessible via Nginx, or it will be served via Nginx. Okay, so let me first explain you this configuration file that you need to use it. So guys, now let's start with the first use case where we want to deploy a static website. So I have created this basic website, very basic one, only HTML and CSS we are using. So we want to solve this using Nginx, which is the first use case. Now, first of all, what we have to do, we have to clone this. I will copy this and I will, let us go to home/Ubuntu. Here I will clone this. Okay, and let me provide username. Also guys, for you it will be available, this repository will be available. You can just download it directly from my account. Okay, this is done. So we have now the static website. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this on location. Where location? If I show you slash var www. Okay, this is the location where we have to copy, and you can see by default only HTML folder will be there. And this HTML folder, if I show you, okay, we have installed Nginx, right? We have to start Nginx. So let us start it, and let me just run this. Okay, so by default, if I go on browser, if I get the public IP address, and by default as of now we are using just HTTP. So if I just put this, you can see it is pointing to welcome to Nginx. This is another HTML file which is actually stored inside this folder. Okay, so by default it is going there. Now what we want to do, we want to serve our own this static website. So I'm going to copy this. We are going to use sudo because var will be requiring elevated permissions. Sudo cp, yeah. First we have to provide the path where our static website is there. Correct? Now it is a folder. So I'm going to run it recursively using -r, and I want to copy it here. Okay. And One second. Let us see. So now you can see static website is copied, right? But the problem is if I run ls-l, you can remember the owner of this folder is root. And I told you the user that we are going to use will be this, correct? That is the user that is going to handle the request. So we have to change the permissions. We can do that using sudo chown -r recursive for recursive. And I want to make the owner as this dash data colon dash data. And then I'm going to run the let's say static command. Okay. Now ls-l, and we can see the owner of this static site folder has been changed. That means this should work now. Now we have to create our configuration. For that we will go to cd/etc/nginx. Okay. Here we are. So now we have to go into sites available. So let us go inside it. Okay. Now we have to create the configuration file. So I'm going to create using again sudo vi static dash site. I can put .cnf also. Okay. So if I put .cnf also, it will work. If I don't put, then also it will work because we are just creating the configuration. So I have opened and now we have to provide the configuration, right? What we have to write inside the configuration, let me explain you that. This is the thing we have to write. First, we have to create a server block, which is like a virtual server for our static website. Listen 80, that means Nginx will be listening on port 80. Then server name. Here you have to provide the specific domain name that you want your application to be running on. So here I can go to 𝗭𝗲𝗿𝗀 platform, and there I have one. Where is it? I have few domains available, so I will just use one of them. I'll go to my products, and here we can use this one. Click on DNS. Now we just have to get the IP of the VM where we have Nginx. Click on DNS records, and first on a record I will modify the IP address. Save this. Let's wait for this to yeah. And then same thing we have to do with another a record because we just have IP address, so we have to use a records. You know, if we have some kind of URL, like when we create load balancer, then we have URL. In that case, you have to use CNAME, but here IP then a record. Okay, so this is done. Just for these changes to be reflecting, and you can see this is the domain I'm using. And once I click on search, everywhere tick mark is coming except few two. So let me, yeah, now it's fine. Only one is pending, and it will be done in a few seconds. So now we can go to our configuration page, and here we can write the domain that we want to use. In my case, skj.ptpp.in. So here you have to provide server name, then we have root. This is the root directory for your static website. And as you remember, we have kept it on this location inside the folder that was named static-site. This is the folder, this is the root directory. This is the folder where we have kept our web pages. And here we are defining the home page. Home page is what? Index.html. That is our home page. So that we have written here. Then we have location. Location basically here we need to mention key. You see this slash. This means that when on browser I type skj.ptpp.in, which is my domain where the website is supposed to be accessible. So this basically refers to like this. Okay. So here when we type this, when we type this location, what should be happening? First, it should be going to the defined information. That means this is the index page. So first it should be going there. If we write something like this, let's say if I write skj.ptpp.in/about, then it should be finding that. See, this, it refers to this one. Slash whatever we write, it's going to find inside this folder. If it is present, it's going to show us that web page. If not, it's going to give this 404. Okay, so this is also configuration done. And let me copy this section. We will copy this, paste it here, save this. Okay, this is done. Next thing that we have to do is reload the Jenkins. Before that, as I told you, we have to make sure that we are creating a symbolic link from sites available to sites enabled, and here it will be static dash site. That's what this is the configuration file name that we created. Using this command, we are creating a symbolic link. Okay, so we will execute this. Once this is done, you need to verify things. For that, you can run this command, and here we can see successful. Final command is to reload Jenkins. So I will copy this, execute here. This is also done. And now over browser, we can check this skj_ptpp.in. You can see it pointed to the home page or index.html. If I see in browser, it goes about.html, so it opens that page. Let us say I just write like this, random.html. So this page might not exist. In that case, we are getting 404, and that's exactly what we have defined here inside this, right? 404, and that's exactly how it's working. So this is the first use case. Again, if I go to home page, you can see we are able to access the home page very easily, right? And it is able to show all the files. So that is the first thing that we are able to understand, right? Okay. Next up, what we want to do, the second use case where we want to use Nginx server as a reverse proxy. Okay, so let me show you. And in reverse proxy, what I said, it's going to hide the access to backend. And if frontend want to access backend server, it should be using only by sending a request to Nginx first, and then from Nginx, the request will be forwarded to backend. Okay, so let us implement that as well. So team, now let us execute the second use case and second project of our video, which is about Nginx as reverse proxy. For this, I'm using this project backend and frontend, where backend and frontend both are written using Node.js, and this is the main code here. And here you can see this section is calling the API/hello, which is basically inside our backend. So backend access will be given via API, but in our case, as we saw that using Nginx as reverse proxy, the request will be going from frontend to Nginx and from there to backend. That means Nginx will be working as a reverse proxy between backend and frontend, so that backend is not accessible anywhere, only accessible via reverse proxy Nginx. Okay. One more thing I should show you. So inside backend index.js code here, you can see first of all here we have the API call, and another important thing we are using WebSocket. Now, why we are using WebSocket, that you need to understand very clearly, because when you have an application that like chat kind of application that requires persistent connection and a real-time communication required, in that case we should be using WebSockets. It allows you to make sure that your connection is persistent and quite useful when you have real-time like live chat application. Okay, so let's start. First of all, let us clone this project, and here I will go to /home/ here. Let us clone the repository. Again, the same repository will be available to you publicly. You can simply use it or fork it on your account. So let me clone it here for 6, and we have the token available. Okay, so we have this Nginx node proxy. Let us go inside it, and here we have these two folders, right? Now what we want to do, we want to copy this front-end folder, which will be inside on this location var www. Okay, for that, quickly let me open another new page. Okay, first of all, few changes I'm going to do so that I can remove the existing changes that we did for previous project. So I will go here, Nginx, go to sites available, And yeah, this file, this configuration I'm going to remove. Sorry, let me use sudo command. Okay, and then I'm going to go to sites enabled, cd sites dash enabled. Here we have this, so we are going to remove this as well. Static. Okay, this is done. Now let us go to var and www. Okay, here we had the previous project, so I'll just remove this as well. Sudo rm-rf static, and now we are good to go. So now what I want to do, I want to copy this front end part to this location. So I will run sudo cp-r for recursive /home /ubuntu /nginx frontend. Okay. We have some issue. Okay, sorry. We have to put destination, and I want to copy it here, so I will just put dot. Sorry, and we have the front end available. Now make sure that when you are working on this location, on this folder, as remember I told you, you have to make sure that the user www-data is the owner of the folder and files. So let us modify that as well. Sudo chown -r, username is this, because this is the one, the user that is going to serve the files. Okay, and this, and we have front end. Sorry, spelling mistake, let me correct it. This is done, and we can check it. You can see changes have been done. Now we have to go on and create the configuration where inside sites available, and I will write like this, sites dash available. Okay, so here we have to create the configuration file, sudo vi, and let's call it as nginx dash node dash proxy. That was the project name. Now here we have to add the configuration files similar to what we did in case of previous project, right? So this section you are already aware, just make sure that you have to replace few things. What things? Here we have to add our domain, which is skjptpp.in. Okay, and here make sure this folder name is same as what you have created inside this location, front end. This is the home page, and then we have this part also, service static files on location. It will be going here. If you provide after slash anything, then it will use this to search files inside this folder. If not, if it is unable to find 404. Now coming to the reverse proxy part. So this section is basically the reverse proxy part. Here we have location again. If on URL we are calling something like this slash domain skjptpp.in/API/ we type anything like hello, then it's going to proxy pass here. Okay, and here you have to change, it is localhost, so as of now I'll just change it to the IP that we have where the backend will be running, and this in our case is going to be this one. Okay, then we have proxy pass HTTP version 1.1. It is basically going to make sure that connection is alive. Okay, then we have header host. It's going to, it refers to basically the host from where the request is coming. In our case it will be this one, skjptpp.in, the domain. Then we have remote address. This refers to the client IP address from where the request is coming, the client IP address, the IP of the machine. Okay, then we have this one. So this basically refers to chain of all the proxies from where the request has been transferred. Okay, for example, like if you are using a VPN, there will be chain of proxies. Next up we have WebSocket support. Now as I told you that we are using WebSocket, so for that purpose we need to make sure that in order to upgrade the connection so that it's kind of like real-time kind of thing, for that purpose we are using this location, this. Okay, and inside this same kind of information we have. So now let us do that. Let us create this also. I'm going to copy this, paste it here, save this. This is done. Now, as I said, we need to start the backend, then only it will be useful. So let us go the location where we have the backend. You can see backend is there, so we will go inside it. Now we have to start it. So for that, first of all, we need to make sure that we have Node.js on our machine. So I will run download Node.js, click on the first link, select Linux, and I'm going to use NVM. So copy this, and yeah, we have to execute this command as well, because that's what it is written here, you can see. Okay, next thing that we have to run is this one, and I guess final command is this one to install the 22 LTS version. Okay, so this is done. So we have installed Node.js on our machine. That is fine. Next thing what we have to do, we have to download the dependencies. So as of now, as you can see that we are not at all using dependency file, right? Package.json. So we need to install directly and manually. So first I will run this to initialize, and then I will run this to install the required dependencies, Express, Course, and Socket.io. So let's run this, and let's see how it goes. This is done. Final command to start the backend, we can run node index.js. I can see it is a backend listening at so and so, right? But still I have one small doubt. Okay, the thing is it's still listening just on localhost. What I want that it should be listening on instead of localhost, it should be listening like this, so that we should be able to access it from anywhere. Okay, so we have to modify a little bit inside this section. So let me modify. So I have added the changes here. You can see now it's listening on this port, right? Sorry, instead of just to be accessible from localhost, now it could be accessible from anywhere. And we are going to modify the same thing inside our file, and at the end I can modify it. Let me quickly do this. Okay. And yeah, this is done. And now we can start it, node index.js, and now you can see it is listening on this. So this part is done. Next thing what we have to do, we have to restart our Nginx also. Now we have already modified this. So first of all, let me provide the correct name which we provided, which was Nginx node proxy. From where this is coming, just to make you just to let you know, it is coming because of this Nginx sites available. If you see the name of the file that we created, Nginx node proxy, and that's exactly what we have written here. Okay, so we will run this to create a symbolic link. See, on different server I have started the backend which is running, so I can run it here. This is done, and final check is to verify the changes and reload the Nginx. So let us run that as well. This is successful, and this also we can run to reload. That means if this is done, so we have made the changes, we have restarted Nginx also. Next and final stage is to verify the changes. So let us, okay, so the page is coming up. Now what I want to show you is how, let me put it here, and okay, so this is backend running and this is the front end which we are accessing via Nginx. So if I click on get API message, click here, and you can see immediately as soon as I click here also we can see received request from IP so and so and hello from Node.js backend. Okay, and I can click multiple times and request is going correctly on our backend. So this is how Nginx is handling the backend and request. See, this is exactly what is happening here. Here basically, mm, this is our, let's say, front end, right? And this is our client. Client is basically browser. Okay, so we are accessing front end using Nginx. Side by side, Nginx is also acting as a reverse proxy. So if any request is coming from front end to access backend, it's going to reverse proxy Nginx first, and from here Nginx like gets response from this and send this here. Okay, this is how it is happening. Okay, and as you can see, it's working fine. So that's how Nginx will be working as a reverse proxy. Now let me explain you a scenario where Nginx will be working as a load balancer. So guys, first of all, you need to clone this repository, and as you can see here, we have one front end and two backend servers. So let us clone this on the, yeah. First of all, on server, I have stopped the previous backend. So let me close this. And here we will go home/Ubuntu. Here we have these files, so I will just remove all of them. Okay, and I will clone our new project, which is this one. This is done, and we will go inside this. Sorry. So we have these files, right? Next thing what I'm going to do, quickly open new page. Here we will go on the location. First of all, we are going to copy the front end. So I will go to where this location, and now I'm going to copy using sudo cp-r. I'm going to copy the, okay, before that let us remove the previous front end. So I will run sudo rm-rf front end. Okay, and now let us copy sudo cp-r, and we want to copy home Ubuntu Nginx front end and here. So we have the new front end. Just make sure permission thing, sudo chon -r www-data: front end. So this part is done from our side. Okay, so let me go to home of Ubuntu, and let us go inside it. So first I'm going to go inside backend. Sorry, I'm going to go inside backend 1 and backend 2. Sorry, backend 2. So we will cd nginx backend 2. Okay. Okay. Before anything, let us make sure that previous configuration we have removed. So I will go to /etc/nginx, and let us go inside cd sites available. We have the previous configuration. Let me remove it. Okay. Similarly, I'm going to remove from sites enabled also. Sudo and this. Okay, this is done, and let us go inside sites available to create our configuration. So we are going to create the configuration named as Nginx-load balancer. Here we have to write the configuration file. Talking about the configuration file, so okay, first section we have upstream backend APIs. It's a kind of like backend variable kind of thing that we are naming it. Then we have least connection. This is the kind of algorithm that you can put. There are multiple, but out of this you can use this one. Least con, it basically says that whichever backend has less request, that will be receiving the upcoming request. Okay, and here let's change the server because it's localhost, and from browser it won't be possible to get the localhost of this VM. So let us modify this, and same for this one. You can see both our backends are running on different ports. Then we have the same kind of thing we have to provide domain .in, and here the folder in which we have kept the front-end files. So in our case, it's front-end only. Coming to down here, yeah, similar kind of thing you can see that we have configured before. And let me copy this here in the configuration file inside sites available. Okay. Okay, I guess we have to use sudo, I guess. Yeah, sudo vi nginx load balancer, and here we can add this. This is done. Okay, next what we have to do, we have to start backend 1 and backend 2. Okay, so for starting, first of all, we need to make sure that we have all the required dependencies. So I will run first these two commands we have to run on backend 1. Same thing we have to run on backend 2. Okay, once these two commands have been run, we can run node index.js to start both the backends. So first let me start on backend 2 and on backend 1 as well. This is done, and finally what we can do, we can restart Nginx as well. Where is it? Okay, here let me copy this, and here I can paste it. Just make sure this thing is correct, which is load balancer. Okay, that's the file that we have created, configuration file. So let us create a symbolic link, and this is done, and final test we can do using this, and last command, which is to restart. Okay, this is also done. Guys, now we can access it, and let's see how it goes. Sorry, skjptpp.in. So this is it, and if I click on here, server 1, server 2, like that. But yeah, we need to test it, like how it's going to work or behave in when we have like one server is overloaded. So for that, I have set of command that we can execute using Apache 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗀. So let us try this. I will go on this page. Let us go to home directory. Okay, let's run this, and then we can run this command. Instead of this, we can write the original one, the one that we are using. Okay, so to test everything, we can execute this command, and let's see how it goes. So basically what has happened, on backend 1 we had around 48 requests, and on backend 2 we had around 52 requests. Why there's a difference between the time? Because the time where backend 1 was occupied or having more connection requests, then a coming new connection request went to backend 2. So this is how Nginx will load balance it based on least connection. It's going to decide where exactly the new upcoming request should be sent. If like there are already many connections on like one server, then it's going to send the upcoming new connection to next server. Okay, so yeah, you can test it out on your side as well. All the code and steps will be given in the description, and you can download it, the like tutorial file, and you can use it. Okay, so yeah, that's all for today's video, and I hope it was really useful. So yeah, thanks for watching and have a nice day.